And we're joined now by former Congressman and former 2012 Republican Senate candidate from Missouri, Todd Akin. He's the author of the new book, Firing Back, Taking on the Party Bosses and Media Elite to Protect Our Faith and Freedom. And Congressman Akin, much of your book is about the day Sunday, August 19th, 2012, and the subsequent fallout from that day. What happened on that day?
Well, actually, that's just the first chapter, so there's a whole lot more in the book than that. But the interview was cut on a Friday afternoon. And I could tell by looking back at the tape that I was a bit tired. And but I didn't see anything that seemed too outstandingly that people were going to jump on, because it was one of those gotcha, one question after the other, trying to trap you type of things, because the talk show host was a very liberal guy. And so then it played Sunday morning, and a guy that had been, they call them trackers, had been following me during the whole campaign. I guess he picked up on that the word legitimate rape together and thought, okay, there's an opportunity. So Sunday morning, everything was fine. By Sunday evening, my assistant campaign manager called me and he said, DEFCON 1, which is a military term for Defense Condition 1. It means red alert, okay? And within a couple of days, I'd gone from the respectable congressman to basically somebody that was considered some sort of world pariah. And that was for mischoosing some words. I shouldn't have specified rape. I was trying to separate the idea of statutory rape from a rape that causes stress. Most rape is stressful, and so I was making the point, stress affects pregnancy, which was really a big parenthesis to get to the gotcha question, which I was going to answer head on.
Well, you say these words that you chose in the book, you say cause a cataclysmic social explosion.
Yeah.
Let's play our viewers a clip from that interview and have you come back and explain what you were saying there.
Sure.
Okay, so if an abortion could be considered in a case of, say, a tubal pregnancy or something like that, what about in the case of rape? Should it be legal or not?
Well, you know, people always want to try and make that as one of those things. Well, how do you slice this particularly tough sort of ethical question? It seems to me, first of all, from what I understand from doctors, that's really rare. If it's a legitimate rape, the female body has ways to try to shut that whole thing down. But let's assume that maybe that didn't work or something. You know, I think there should be some punishment, but the punishment ought to be on the rapist and not attacking the child.
And part of your book is explaining what you meant by that.
Well, yeah, a little bit, just taking off in the beginning. The point is this, he is asking the very hard question, and that is, what happens if a woman is raped? And so that question really is, does the child that's conceived in rape have the same right to life as a child that's conceived in love? And that's the question. And my argument is, if abortion is wrong, which I believe it is, then it's wrong there. The person that should be punished is the rapist and not the child. Now, the trouble was, I got under this parenthesis saying that the chances of a woman becoming pregnant from rape are somewhat reduced because of stress. Now, people argue about that. I'm not a medical doctor, but I give you just some common sense. You may know some families, they got married, they wanted to have children, couldn't have any kids. So they adopt a kid, and presto zingo, the woman gets pregnant and has a child. And a lot of people say that's because the woman was feeling stress, and when they were relieved knowing that they had children, then they had regular children. Another example that I know of a gal who is really competitive in the triathlons. I mean, she's a very beautiful gal, but she drives her body very, very hard. To the point that she's almost sterile, according to her husband, because her body is under stress all the time from those, swimming, biking, and running. So that was my case. Now you could say, well, maybe or maybe not stress plays a factor. The real question was, and it's a tough ethical question, does the child that's conceived in rape have the same right to life as a child conceived in love? My case was yes.
And part of your book is firing back at the party bosses and the media elite here. Here's a quote from your book. You say, "What I said was not a gaffe at all, but a clear statement of conservative principle. Often the very same pundits who criticize the lack of clarity and substance in political campaigns are the first ones to attack people like me who have tried to add both. And as I was just about to learn myself, the Republicans are sometimes quicker to attack than even the Democrats." Can you talk about the fallout in the days after?
Sure, I can. one of the contrasts I think that's interesting on this, and it affects even your job, John, in a way, because we all believe in free speech. That's the whole point of the media, is to have free speech. Now, my question is this: if somebody gets on a program and chooses words poorly, that could be insensitive or thoughtless in certain ways, but it's still just speaking. Now jump forward from the time I made those comments. 2 weeks later, you have the Democrat National Convention. You have Bill Clinton, who is the keynote speaker. Now, if you put Juanita Broaddrick's testimony, sworn testimony that Bill Clinton raped her aside and say, well, that didn't happen, even if you take that aside, you still have a guy that has a numerous series of accounts of sexual abuse and sexual impropriety. And he's getting applause at the Democrat convention. Now, there's a difference, I would say, between saying some words and actually abusing a woman. So, doesn't it seem like the Democrats are the ones that have got the war on women going? And then recently we found out, and this was not covered widely by the news, that Hillary Clinton some years ago had defended a rapist of a 12-year-old girl. Now, it's okay for a lawyer to defend a rapist, that's okay. But she also demeaned the testimony of the 12-year-old girl who was looking for justice in a court of law. She got the rapist off the hook. And 10 years afterwards, she's talking about it on a media interview, and she's laughing about it. To me, that's a war on women. It's the Democrats' war on women. So my point is, I don't think the national media is very balanced in dealing with many, many issues. It's not just balance, though. I think it goes to the point of keeping the public intentionally ignorant of some of the things that are done and said by people that are more on the liberal media side.
Todd Akin, a former 6-term congressman, here to answer your questions, take your comments as we discuss his book, Firing Back, Taking on the Party Bosses and Media Elite to Protect Our Faith and Freedom, going through your life, your involvement in politics, and of course, that day and that interview and the fallout from that interview. Phone numbers: Republicans can call at 202-585-3881. Democrats, 202-585-3880. Independents, 202-585-3882. And if you're outside the U.S., it's 202-585-3883. We'll start on our line for independents in Texas. Rachel is calling to talk to you. Rachel, good morning.
Yes, how are you doing? Like you're saying that if my 12-year-old daughter was to get raped, my granddaughter, and I was to take her to the emergency, they could not give her the date, the morning after pill, so she would have to go through her whole life remembering being raped, brutally raped. And you know what? It's up to you people to make the laws and go after the rapists and make them to where they never get out, because the young girl that has been brutally raped goes through it every day in her life. And these guys serve 2 years in prison, and they get out. And it is up to you to make the laws to where that does not happen.
Well, first of all, your caller, I completely agree with the caller in the sense that rape is a very serious crime. It used to be a capital offense that you could be put to death for having raped somebody. Then the Supreme Court said you can't do that anymore. But I am totally in agreement that rape is a very, very serious crime. The question is what happens when someone is raped and they become pregnant, which can happen. We had a lot of those people, actually, John, working in my campaign, people who were the children of having been raped and had grown up. And when they heard that I was willing to defend their lives as little children, they were all on board with our campaign. So I agree with that. And I don't think that killing the child is going to take the horrible memories out of the woman who was raped. I think those memories are there, and that's why it's a horrible crime.
Staying in Texas, Bill is from Corpus Christi on our line for Democrats. Bill, good morning.
Good morning, sir. I listened to you when you made your statement, sir, about women, and I've listened to your explanation. And quite frankly, you used doctors to your advantage in your first statement, and now you're using doctors again saying, oh, I'm not what. Sir, you didn't get in trouble because of what you've used and said. You got in trouble because of your ignorance. You're in a position of authority. You were expected to know more and better than others, and you don't.
Well, John, it's an interesting question. The question to me is very ancillary to the main point, which is the question of rape. But The item of stress, there have been at least 6 new studies that have come out that say that stress does play a part in pregnancy. And so I let those studies down in